The legendary pirate is a character built on myths. The real thing was a bizarre hybrid of disciplined accountant, unhinged lunatic, and terrible dinner guest. Their actual lives were governed by rules and habits far stranger than any movie script. We have found 33 of the most absurd, shocking, and unbelievably dumb things they actually did. Let's get into it. 1. The iconic monkey on a pirate's shoulder was far more than an exotic pet. It was a key employee in their criminal enterprise. Think of it as a furry, prehensile-tailed instrument of larceny. Shrewd pirates would train these intelligent creatures to become master pickpockets. In the chaotic symphony of a bustling port town, with its shouting merchants, sailors, and clattering carts, the pirate would create a diversion while his tiny, hairy accomplice got to work. The monkey would scamper through the crowd, its small size making it virtually invisible, and with nimble fingers it would lift purses, snatch shiny jewelry, and even pluck keys from belts. It was the perfect heist partnership. The monkey got paid in fruit, and good luck describing your assailant to the authorities when he weighs 5 pounds and is currently halfway up a palm tree. 2. Blackbeard wasn't just a pirate. He was a master of psychological warfare, and his beard was his greatest weapon. To cultivate an image as a literal demon from the depths, he would do something utterly insane, set himself on fire. Before a battle, he would braid slow-burning fuses, soaked in a charming cocktail of saltpeter and lime water, directly into his massive, tangled beard and hair. As his ship approached its victim, he would light them. The fuses would sputter and hiss, enveloping his head in a thick, choking cloud of acrid smoke, with sparks and embers glowing around his crazed eyes. Imagine you're a sailor, preparing to defend your ship, and the enemy captain storms the deck looking like his head is actively trying to achieve orbit. Most crews just threw down their weapons in pure terror. No cannonballs needed, just a man committed to his terrifying brand. 3. Life on the open sea was long stretches of crushing boredom, punctuated by moments of extreme violence. So when pirates finally made landfall, they needed to unwind, and their preferred spectator sport was a masterclass in absurdity: giant turtle racing. On some remote Caribbean beach, these fearsome outlaws would capture enormous sea turtles, drag them ashore, and place bets of stolen gold on which one would win a slow-motion race to a palm tree. The scene must have been surreal. A crowd of the world's most dangerous men, drunk on rum, screaming encouragement at creatures moving at a geological pace. The turtles, for their part, were completely oblivious, often wandering off course or just stopping entirely. It was the pirate equivalent of watching paint dry, but with a lot more yelling and gambling. 4. The infamous Calico Jack Rackham is a legend, but his end was less of a blaze of glory and more of an embarrassing drunken faceplant. When the Navy finally tracked him down in 1720, they were expecting a desperate, bloody fight to the death. What they found instead was a floating frat party. Calico Jack and his entire male crew were so monumentally wasted on rum that they were effectively unconscious. They couldn't stand, let alone fire a cannon. The only real fight came from the 2 women on board, Anne Bonny and Mary Red, who fought with the fury of cornered tigers while trying to rally the comatose men. The pirate hunters took the ship almost without resistance, ending a notorious career not with a bang, but with the pathetic whimper of a truly world-ending hangover. 5. The cornerstone of any pirate's diet was a culinary abomination known as hardtack. This was a simple flour and water biscuit baked until it achieved the density of a building material. Its main advantage was its shelf life. It could outlast civilizations. Its main disadvantage was that it was also the perfect nursery, hotel, and graveyard for weevils. These biscuits were almost always riddled with bugs and their larvae. So what's a starving pirate to do? They developed a brilliant strategy of psychological denial. They would only eat their hardtack in the pitch-black darkness of the ship's hold. The logic was simple. If you can't see the wriggling, squirming protein supplements you're crunching on, then they technically don't exist. It was a stomach-churning but necessary solution to their perpetually crunchy food problem. 6. Not every pirate was a hardened mariner forced into a life of crime. Some were just incredibly wealthy men suffering from a catastrophic midlife crisis. Enter Stede Bonnet, the gentleman pirate. He was a rich, respected plantation owner who apparently woke up one day, decided his comfortable life was dreadfully boring, and impulsively bought a fully equipped pirate ship. He hired a crew of 70, told them he was their new captain, and set sail, despite having absolutely no idea how to sail a ship, lead a crew, or perform any act of piracy whatsoever. He was so clueless, he actually paid his men a regular salary from his own fortune. He was eventually taken under the wing of Blackbeard, who basically treated him like a rich, embarrassing nephew who needed constant supervision. 7. Pirates were pioneers of unconventional warfare, and one of their nastiest inventions was the stink pot. This was essentially a primitive form of chemical weapon designed to cause maximum chaos and disgust. They'd take a simple clay pot and fill it with a hellish concoction of sulfur, pitch, rotting meat, fish guts, and anything else that would create a foul, choking odor. During a boarding action, they'd light a fuse and hurl these onto the enemy's deck. The pot would shatter, unleashing a blinding, suffocating cloud of pure, weaponized stench. The goal wasn't just to make the enemy sailors uncomfortable, it was to make them panic, choke, and vomit, completely breaking their ranks and making them easy targets. It was a brutally effective tactic that won battles through sheer olfactory horror. 8. Forget the simple, rugged look you see in movies. A successful pirate captain often looked like he had just robbed a high-end fashion house and decided to wear everything at once. After capturing a wealthy vessel, the first thing pirates did was raid the luggage of aristocratic passengers. This resulted in the hilarious spectacle of battle-scarred, sun-beaten men with missing teeth strutting around the deck in powdered wigs, delicate silk coats, and fancy lace cravats. It was utterly impractical for life at sea. But it wasn't about practicality. It was a flamboyant and defiant statement. They were literally wearing their success, turning the symbols of the very upper class they despised into a chaotic, mismatched uniform of rebellion and newfound wealth. 9. In an era before modern dentistry, a toothache was a form of relentless torture, especially at sea where the diet consisted of hardtack and scurvy was a constant companion. When the agonizing throb became unbearable, pirates turned to a cure that sounds more like a punishment. They would take gunpowder, mix it with a bit of water or rum to form a gritty, abrasive paste, and then rub it vigorously onto their aching teeth and gums. The logic, if you can call it that, was that the abrasive charcoal and sulfur would somehow scrub the pain away. In reality, this would have been excruciatingly painful, likely damaging the enamel and inflaming the gums even further. It was less a dental solution and more a desperate act of blasting the problem with something, anything, that felt powerful. 10. Contrary to their image as chaotic anarchists, pirate ships operated under surprisingly sophisticated business models, which included a shockingly progressive form of workers' compensation. Before a voyage, the crew would draft and sign a pirate code, or Articles of Agreement, which laid out the rules and, crucially, a detailed payment schedule for injuries sustained on the job. This wasn't a vague promise. It was a morbidly specific price list for body parts. Losing a right arm, your primary fighting and working limb, might net you 600 pieces of 8. A left leg could be worth 400, and an eye might fetch 100. This wasn't born from compassion. It was a pragmatic business decision. It ensured that every pirate fought with maximum ferocity, knowing that even a career-ending injury wouldn't leave them destitute. 11. That iconic eye patch, a staple of every pirate costume, was most likely not hiding a gruesome injury. It was a brilliant, low-tech biological hack for gaining a tactical advantage in battle. Ship-to-ship combat was a chaotic dance between the blindingly bright sun on the main deck and the pitch-black darkness of the ship's interior. By keeping one eye covered with a patch, a pirate kept it permanently adjusted to the dark. When the fight moved below deck to raid the cargo hold or hunt down hiding sailors, he could simply flip the patch to the other eye. While his opponents were fumbling around, momentarily blind, the pirate had instant, perfect night vision. It was a simple but devastatingly effective trick that gave him a killer edge in the crucial first seconds of a close-quarters fight. 12, a pirate ship was a floating powder keg of testosterone, rum, and heavily armed men with fragile egos. To prevent their vessel from turning into a constant, bloody free-for-all, most pirate codes had a strict no fighting on the ship policy. It was a matter of workplace safety. You couldn't have men hacking at each other and potentially damaging the rigging, the hull, or other essential crew members. But disputes were inevitable. The solution was a formal, almost gentlemanly process. All personal quarrels were to be settled on the next available shore. Once on land, the two feuding pirates would be given a sword or a pistol each and told to sort it out. It was a bizarre form of scheduled conflict resolution, ensuring that all murderous rage was conducted safely off-site, away from the shared workspace. 13. When you think of pirate weapons, you think of cutlasses and flintlock pistols. But when ammunition ran low or they needed an extra explosive punch, pirates proved to be masters of deadly improvisation. On tropical islands where coconuts were plentiful, they invented their own version of a hand grenade. A pirate with some basic engineering skills would carefully hollow out a coconut, pack the inside with gunpowder, and insert a short fuse. The result was a crude, unpredictable, but terrifyingly effective explosive device. When lit and thrown onto the deck of a merchant ship, the coconut grenade would explode, sending a blast of concussive force and a deadly spray of woody shrapnel in all directions. It was the ultimate example of using your environment to your advantage. 14. The Hollywood image of a pirate ship is a non-stop party of gambling, drinking, and debauchery. The reality on some ships was closer to that of a floating, heavily armed monastery with a strict curfew. Many pirate codes, created to maintain order, explicitly banned two things that caused the most violent disputes: women and gambling. The legendary pirate Black Bart Roberts was famously puritanical. His articles forbade any gambling for money, insisted on lights out at 8 p.m. sharp, and kept women off his ship entirely to prevent jealousy and conflict. He even encouraged his crew to attend religious services on Sundays. Imagine being a terrifying outlaw on the high seas, only to be told by your captain to finish your grog and get to bed because it's a school night. 15. That single gold earring worn by so many pirates in our imagination was more than just a fashion statement. It was a fascinating blend of bizarre folk medicine and morbid financial planning. Many sailors believed that piercing the earlobe in a specific spot would magically improve their long-distance vision, a form of maritime acupressure that was supposedly essential for spotting ships on the horizon. But the earring had a second, far more practical purpose. Gold was a universal currency, and the earring served as a down payment for a pirate's own funeral. The belief was that if his corpse washed ashore, the value of the earring would be enough to pay for a proper Christian burial, ensuring his soul wouldn't be left to wander. It was part superstitious cure, part afterlife insurance. 16. On a vessel filled with killers, cannon operators, and skilled sailors, one of the most valued and protected members of the crew was often the musician. Life at sea was incredibly harsh, monotonous, and depressing, making morale the most precious and fragile resource on board. A good fiddler or accordion player was the captain's secret weapon against mutiny. They played sea shanties to help the crew work in rhythm, blasted energetic tunes before a battle to stir up courage, and played somber melodies for burials at sea. Musicians were considered so essential to the ship's operational success that they were often granted a full share of any plunder and were considered non-combatants, kept safe during a fight. Their job was simply too important to risk losing. 17. Life on a pirate ship was a lonely and intensely dangerous affair, forging incredibly strong bonds between crewmates. For some, this bond was formalized in a unique pirate tradition known as matelotage. This was essentially a civil union between two male pirates, a formal partnership that went far beyond simple friendship. The two men would agree to share all their possessions, combine their plunder, and act as each other's primary defender in any fight. It was a deeply committed relationship, and if one of the partners was killed in battle, the other automatically became his sole heir, inheriting all his wealth and possessions. This wasn't just an informal arrangement. It was a recognized and respected institution in pirate society, a pragmatic and powerful alliance that ensured a man always had someone watching his back in a world where betrayal was common. 18. Imagine working in the most dangerous office in the world, and your boss is a volatile, heavily armed tyrant who could legally maroon you for disagreeing with him. That was the reality for many pirates under a bad captain. So, how do you file a formal complaint without becoming the first person to walk the plank? They invented a brilliant piece of bureaucratic subterfuge called a round robin. Instead of signing a petition or list of grievances in a vertical line, which would identify the first signer as the ringleader, the pirates would write their names in a circle around the central complaint. This made it impossible to determine who signed first, creating a perfect shield of collective responsibility. It was a democratic and life-saving innovation that allowed crews to safely voice their dissent and, if necessary, organize a vote to oust their incompetent captain. 19. We think of pirate ships as floating dictatorships, ruled by the iron fist of a terrifying captain. But the truth is, most pirate ships were astonishingly democratic, arguably more so than any nation on Earth at the time. The captain was not a king. He was an elected official. The crew voted him into power, and they could vote him out just as easily. While the captain held absolute authority during a battle or a chase, all other major decisions, where to sail, whether to attack a ship, how to punish a crewmate, were put to a popular vote. Every man had a say. This system wasn't born from a lofty belief in liberty. It was a practical necessity. Pirates were a crew of voluntary outlaws, and the only way to keep such a dangerous group united was to give everyone a voice and a stake in the outcome. 20. A pirate's life and livelihood depended entirely on his weapons, and a flintlock pistol of that era was a notoriously finicky piece of equipment. It was susceptible to moisture, rust, and fouling from black powder residue. A single speck of grime could mean a fatal misfire at a critical moment. Because of this, pirate codes were obsessively strict about weapon maintenance. A pirate was expected to keep his pistols and cutlass clean, dry, and in perfect working order at all times. Failing to do so was considered a serious offense, often punishable by a flogging or a reduction in plunder. It wasn't about looking sharp, it was about survival. On a pirate ship, a dirty weapon was a liability to the entire crew, and negligence was a fast track to a watery grave. Your sword and your pistol were your most important crewmates. 21. The Jolly Roger flag was more than just a spooky decoration. It was a brilliant piece of psychological branding and a brutally effective business tool. Hoisting the black flag was a clear and calculated message. It essentially said, "We are pirates. We are professionals. Surrender now, without a fight, and we will likely take your cargo and let you live. We are businessmen, not butchers." This was their opening offer. However, if a ship chose to resist, the pirates would lower the black flag and raise a solid red one. The red flag had a much simpler and more terrifying meaning. You have refused our generous offer. No quarter will be given. We will now kill every last one of you. This two-tiered warning system was incredibly effective, convincing countless ships to surrender peacefully and saving the pirates the time, risk, and ammunition of a full-blown battle. 22. After a long day of plundering and terrorizing the high seas, what did a pirate eat for dinner? Often, it was a disgusting-sounding but supposedly beloved dish called salmagundi. This wasn't a single recipe, but more of a culinary philosophy. Find everything edible on the ship and chop it up into a giant chaotic salad. The ingredients could include anything and everything: salted beef, turtle meat, fish, chicken, roasted hearts, hard-boiled eggs, palm hearts, onions, olives, and grapes. All of it would be diced, thrown together, doused in oil, vinegar, and spices, and left to marinate. It was served cold and was likely a riot of clashing flavors and textures. For pirates starved for variety after weeks of nothing but hardtack, this bizarre, everything but the kitchen sink stew was considered a gourmet feast. 23. The economic model of a pirate ship was high risk, high reward, and brutally simple. No prey, no pay. Unlike sailors in a navy or on a merchant vessel who received a fixed wage, pirates were essentially freelance employees working on pure commission. If a voyage was a massive success and they captured a treasure ship, every crew member, from the captain to the cabin boy, would receive a predetermined share of the loot. But if they spent months at sea and came back with nothing, then nobody got paid a single coin. This system ensured that every single crew member was fully invested in the success of the enterprise. There was no room for slackers. Your motivation was directly tied to your hunger and your desire not to return to port broke after risking your life for nothing. 24. The romantic image of pirates burying chests of gold on deserted islands and creating elaborate treasure maps is one of the most enduring myths of all time, thanks almost entirely to Robert Louis Stevenson's novel, Treasure Island. The reality is that the vast majority of pirates almost never buried their treasure. Why? Because they were not long-term investors. A pirate's career was often brutally short, and they lived for the moment. As soon as they got their share of the plunder, they would sail to the nearest pirate-friendly port like Nassau or Port Royal and immediately spend it all in a spectacular binge of drinking, gambling, and revelry. The treasure wasn't a retirement fund. It was a ticket to the biggest, wildest party they could find before heading back out to sea to do it all over again. 25. A long sea voyage meant a constant struggle for fresh food. While some ships kept goats or pigs, many pirates turned their vessels into floating, horribly unhygienic chicken coops. They would keep dozens of chickens on board, allowing them to roam relatively freely. This provided a steady supply of fresh eggs, and when the time came, fresh meat, a welcome luxury after weeks of eating salted, rock-hard beef. But the trade-off was a sanitary nightmare. The decks would be constantly covered in chicken droppings, creating a slippery, disgusting, and disease-ridden environment. The smell, combined with the usual shipboard stenches of bilge water, unwashed bodies, and rum, must have been truly apocalyptic. But for a pirate dreaming of a fried egg, it was a price worth paying. 26. That colorful parrot perched on a pirate's shoulder, famously shouting, "Pieces of 8?" It was probably less of a beloved companion and more of a valuable, talking piece of cargo. In the golden age of piracy, Europe was gripped by a frenzy for exoticism. Wealthy aristocrats and merchants were willing to pay astronomical prices for strange and beautiful creatures from the New World. Pirates, being opportunistic businessmen, quickly realized this. An exotic bird like a macaw or a parrot, captured in Central or South America, could be sold in a European port for more than some of the stolen goods in their cargo hold. So while a pirate might have grown fond of his feathered friend, the bird's primary purpose was as a high-value, low-maintenance commodity to be cashed in at the end of a voyage. 27. For pirates, the ultimate punishment wasn't walking the plank. That was actually quite rare. The most feared sentence was being marooned. This was a cold, calculated form of execution by abandonment. A pirate found guilty of a serious crime, like theft from a crewmate or cowardice in battle, would be taken to a deserted island, often little more than a barren sandbar, and left there to die. He was typically given a flask of water, a cutlass, and a single-shot pistol. The pistol wasn't for hunting. It was a final, grim courtesy. It gave the condemned man the choice to end his own life rather than slowly succumb to starvation, dehydration, and madness. It was a terrifyingly lonely and psychologically brutal fate, a reminder of the harsh justice that governed their lawless world. 28. What happened to a pirate who lost a leg in battle or grew too old to fight? You might expect them to be callously cast aside, but in some cases, the pirate community created its own unique retirement and disability system. On the island of Madagascar, a major pirate haven, sprawling, semi-organized communities known as Libertalia were rumored to exist. In these pirate utopias, a common fund was established from the collective plunder. This fund was used to care for pirates who had been maimed in battle or who were too old and infirm to continue their life at sea. It was a form of pirate socialism, a communal safety net ensuring that those who had sacrificed their bodies for the Brotherhood would be looked after, living out their days in relative peace and security. 29. Pirates had an ego, and like many who live on the fringes of society, they wanted to leave their mark. When they swaggered into the taverns and brothels of ports like Nassau or Tortuga, they often engaged in a crude form of territorial marking, pirate graffiti. Using the tips of their knives or pieces of charcoal, they would carve their names, the names of their ships, or lewd drawings onto the wooden walls, tables, and support beams of their favorite establishments. It was a way of saying I was here. For a man whose official existence had been erased, whose only legacy might be a notorious reputation, scrawling his name onto a wall was a small act of defiance, a way to ensure he wouldn't be completely forgotten by the world he terrorized. 30. The most skilled pirates weren't just brutal fighters, they were master navigators and cunning strategists who used the ocean itself as a weapon. Some pirate captains who intimately knew the treacherous coastal waters of the Caribbean could perform an incredible feat of maritime trickery. They could lure a pursuing naval ship or a heavy merchant vessel into a specific channel or strait. By knowing the exact patterns of the tides and currents, they could maneuver their own smaller, nimbler ship in such a way that it would disrupt the flow of water, creating an artificial whirlpool or a sudden, powerful cross-current. This would spin the larger, less agile enemy ship out of control and drive it directly onto a hidden sandbar or reef, crippling it without firing a single cannonball. 31. For a brief, glorious period, pirates didn't just raid civilization, they created their own. The port of Nassau in the Bahamas became the infamous Pirate Republic, a real-life functioning anarchist state. For over a decade, this was the epicenter of global piracy, a place with no laws, no governors, and no authority other than the collective will of the most notorious pirates of the age. Blackbeard, Calico Jack, and hundreds of others used Nassau as their base of operations. It was a chaotic, debaucherous haven where stolen goods were openly traded, and pirate captains formed a loose confederation to organize their defenses and plan their raids. It was a short-lived but spectacular experiment in outlaw self-governance, a temporary capital for a kingdom of thieves. 32. One of the biggest misconceptions about pirates is that they were all rogue outlaws. In reality, many of the most famous pirates were actually legitimate, government-sponsored contractors. This was the practice of privateering. During wartime, a government would issue a letter of marque to a private ship captain. This document was essentially a license to legally attack and plunder any vessel belonging to an enemy nation. For the government, it was a cheap way to disrupt enemy trade without having to build more navy ships. For the captain, it was a chance to get fabulously rich with the full blessing of the crown. Of course, when the war ended, many privateers found they enjoyed the lifestyle so much that they simply ignored their expired contracts and carried on plundering everyone, officially becoming pirates. 33. A wooden ship was a self-contained ecosystem, and often the most dominant species on board was the rat. Rat infestations could become so catastrophic that they threatened the entire voyage. A swarm of rats could consume vast quantities of food stores, chew through ropes, and even gnaw on sleeping sailors. When fumigation and hunting failed, pirates were sometimes forced to resort to the most extreme nuclear option. They would sail to a safe harbor, painstakingly unload every single valuable item, cannons, sails, plunder, supplies, and then they would set their own ship on fire. Burning the vessel down to the waterline was the only guaranteed way to completely exterminate a truly biblical-scale rat infestation. It was a desperate, costly, and insane-sounding solution, but sometimes it was the only choice they had. So, the real pirate was a walking contradiction of rules, chaos, and terrible life choices. We've dug up 33 examples of their absurdity, but the historical record is vast and full of forgotten madness. So, here's the challenge. What is the one mind-blowing pirate fact you know that is so insane, it should have been number 1 on this list? We want to see it in the comments. Now, go conquer that like button and subscribe for more.